WTF is a line source sound. To understand that, we first need some background about another type of audio: point sources. Point sources are what most sounds around us originate from, and is a sound which spread out spherically, like a ball. Some examples: the sounds you make from your mouth, your phone speaker, snapping your hands, all are sounds which spread out like a sphere, and is therefore a point source. But David, you now ask, what is then a line source? Well, my young whippersnapper, I would then say, a line source creates a sound which spreads out like a cylinder. What? There are a few natural line sources in the wild. Some examples of this are some kind of streams, which radiate sound equally up and to the sides, but almost no energy to the front and back. A busy highway also behaves like this. Since I'm telling you this now, you must be wondering, is there an advantage to this? And yes, my young whippersnapper, yes there is. It has to do with the relationship between distance and level. Say, we have a boring normal speaker which behaves like a point source. Let's also say that you decide to stand 1 meter in front of this speaker like an idiot, like this. Let's say we're playing at a volume so that you perceive the volume as 80 decibels. Now, take a step back, so that you stand 2 meters away from the speaker. You have now doubled your distance from the speaker, which means that the volume you perceive is 6 decibels lower, or 74 decibels. Now, take 2 steps back, so that you stand 4 meters away from the speaker. Now, the level drops another 6 decibels, and the level you perceive is now down at 68 decibels. The volume has dropped 12 decibels from where you first were standing at the 1 meter mark. It has been said that a volume drop of 10 decibels is perceived as the volume being cut in half. This means that the volume which sounds good for Steve here, standing 1 meter away from the speaker, is fine, while you who for some reason decided to stand in the corner 3 meters away from Steve now struggle to hear the sound of Keith Jarrett singing while he plays the piano. Now is where the line source comes in. Since a line source doesn't cover as much area, the same amount of energy gets packed into a smaller space, which means that the level drop-off is less when the distance is increased, specifically half. So using a line source speaker, the volume drop-off is only 3 decibels compared to the 6 decibels when using a point source. Now you would say, wow, that's amazing! But can we emulate this? And yes, we can. Kinda. They look like this. And like this. By packing the speakers close enough, they positively interfere with each other, which causes them to become line sources. But is it that simple? Not really. The distance between the middle of each driver has to be half or less than half of the wavelength of the frequency which the speaker should try to replicate as a line source. That's easy for lower frequency, say 20 Hz, where the wavelength is 17 meters long. But at the other end of the spectrum, at the upper limit of the human hearing, a 20 kHz sound has the wavelength of just 1.7 centimeters. So if there needs to be a distance between the drivers, which is half of that for the drivers to couple and create a line source, something special must be done. Obviously, the speaker drivers we saw before are way too big. Different manufacturers solve this in different ways. Often the audible audio spectrum is divided into 3 parts for low, mid and high frequencies. For the bass frequencies or low frequencies, a normal driver can be used. For the middle frequencies, a slightly smaller but quite normal speaker is used. But for the high frequencies, it varies quite a bit. A few uses ribbon drivers, which are naturally line sources, but which are quite fragile, so in many situations not very practical. Others have come up with clever designs combining compression drivers and certain kinds of waveguides which manage to squeeze all of the frequencies together and out of a smaller opening. But now, you young whippersnapper would ask, does this actually work? Like I said before, it kinda does, but definitely not as good as it does in theory. The directivity of a line array is much better than a point source, but a line array speaker system does not radiate sound like a cylinder. See it more like some kind of middle ground with actual real-world benefits. And while we enjoyed those benefits, clever audio engineers will continue working to hopefully create even better line arrays in the future.